my name is Danielle Beach, and today we're going to talk about particular serious crimes, PSCs as they're called, which greatly affect asylum and withholding, and the consequences of these crimes determine what relief you're eligible for. So what are particular serious crimes? Well, they have no statutory definition, so that's one problem. They can include aggravated felonies, and they include some non-aggravated felonies. Different definitions apply, as I said earlier, from asylum and withholding. If a crime isn't categorically a particularly serious crime, the immigration looks to different factors. And three factors he looks at in particular: the nature of the conviction, the circumstances and the underlying facts of the conviction, and the type of sentence that's been imposed. Particularly serious crimes are a problem for asylum because they're a complete bar to asylum claims. So what for asylum are particularly serious crimes? Well, all aggravated felonies, most drug charges except simple possession, violent crimes, most crimes involving a firearm. Again, the exception is simple possession. Some crimes involving fraud. But if a victim were to lose $10,000 and the sentence is less than 1 year in prison, then no. Trafficking or harboring undocumented people. Now, this has become an increasingly enlarged problem in many different factors that has often involved U.S. district courts. But don't panic. There's still hope. You may be eligible for withholding of removal. Withholding of removal is a different form of relief, a higher burden of proof, clearing probability of persecution, which is 50% or more. And it doesn't give you some of the benefits that asylum gives you, such as travel, bringing in your spouse and children. So that's the problem with withholding. But in some areas, that may be the only thing you qualify for. And many particularly serious crimes that bar an asylum claim do not bar a claim for withholding of removal. So this is why that's significant under INA 241b3. So the bad news is, however, that withholding of removal is much harder to qualify for because, as I mentioned, the burden of proof is much higher. Instead of a 10% chance, it's a 50% chance. And you need very clear and convincing evidence. So the list of crimes that are particularly serious crimes for withholding is much smaller than for asylum, such as drug trafficking, most violent crimes. However, assault with a dangerous weapon and crimes against an individual might not be. So you need to definitely hire a lawyer when you're looking at these things because each of these factors are very complicated. Offenses involving a gun, but again, simple possession, if it's less than 5 years, is not going to be the case for barring withholding. Most other crimes are either not particularly serious crimes or can be reviewed by the court to determine if they're particularly serious crimes. So I suggest that a detailed brief be written on this if you have an applicant that has, or a respondent that has been determined to be convicted of a crime and the judge may even have said that he's already an aggravated felon. An aggravated felon could be eligible for withholding in some circumstances. If a person is sentenced to 2 years in prison for fraud, they would not be eligible for asylum. And remember, asylum is also discretionary. But again, they may be eligible for withholding because they weren't in prison for 5 years. So what's the judge going to do? Look at the underlying facts, determine whether or not they should grant withholding, depending on that nature of that crime and all these other factors that we mentioned. Another example would be if a person was convicted of an aggravated felony and they thoroughly beat someone and it was a violent crime. Well, definitely asylum is not going to be available to them. Withholding, possibly yes, because an aggravated battery may not be, but if it's sufficiently severe and the underlying facts show that it's severe, then withholding could not be granted. Yeah. What happens if you've been arrested of a particularly serious crime or a serious crime? The first thing you need to do is see an immigration lawyer and determine whether or not you're going to be eligible in the context of asylum for either withholding or asylum, or possibly only CAT, which is Convention of Torture under Article 3. Thank you for listening to this, and we will be happy to help you if you have any questions regarding these matters. And good luck.